Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly. I've simply...
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Without further ado, I am going to plunge in because we have such wonderful things to celebrate today, as you are going to discover. Chief of which is, I'm just the most wonderful person on earth, and I'm so happy, and I'm so loved, I'm adored, and I'm just the most wonderful and considerate person. And I have to tell you, when my children grow up, they're going to worship at my altar, because I'm already making clear to them that I'm a goddess. And there are all sorts of little ways that I do this, like writing them emails every day that when they're 16 or 18, I'm going to give them, so that they will know how much I've always thought of them and how wonderful I am. And I'm going to chain them to me so tightly that they're going to make their father look as if he's been freed. So without further ado, if I may, I'm going to plunge in with what Dave Woods says. Dear Lady Campbell, Miss Mimi recently sent some of her products with the name Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. What is your opinion of that? And should the King not hold her accountable for this obviously defiant action? Well, I did post something on X about this day before yesterday, and I got some really rather interesting comments and responses. Well, you know, she posted it to coincide with Catherine's and William's 14th wedding anniversary. I'm so considerate. I never miss an opportunity to try to rain on someone else's parade. Am I not clever? I'm so loving and thoughtful. I just love my family, and your family too, you know. Oh, the fact that we just met, we're all family. Well, I don't know if any of you knows what the question relates to and what I'm speaking about, but I'll tell you what it is. Meghan has given a podcast to her relatively new and very good friend, Jamie Kern Lima, who created a cosmetics line and who featured on her podcast. And the big news is, as they're pushing for ever more recognition for Meghan, that not only would it sort of hopefully rain on William and Catherine's parade, but also it will boost Meghan's successes, because she's never been so frightened, happy. And she's never been so miserable, joyous in her life, because she's surrounded by love and success. So the fact that she spells success quite differently from the way you or I might spell success, because I know success is not spelled Failure, but let's not rock that boat. But Meghan has changed tack. In the podcast, which I was obliged to look at, it was sickening. It was absolutely sickening. Both those women shot waste matter out of the orifice upon which I am sitting and managed to redirect it so it came out of their mouths. a study in artifice and insincerity and egotism and narcissistic backstroking of each other. Just disgusting. And I mean, now some people have said that's very California. It may be California of a type, but it's certainly not California of the type I know. Two of my oldest and closest friends are Californian. Of course, from a totally different category of person. But one arriviste boosting up the other arriviste. And it was so sick-making. You kept on thinking as you listened to it, what Private Eye used to say, pass the sick bucket. But Meghan has changed tack. She's back to being, I'm so happy. I've never been so happy in my life. I just count all my blessings on a daily basis. I mean, I'm just so happy. And the whining voice, both of them whined. I mean, so distasteful. Should she be held accountable for her sending to Jamie Kern Lima a commercial product with the compliment slip, which was very clearly exposed, that said, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Well, both the interviewer and the interviewee went to sufficient pains to pretend that no, we've not rehearsed anything. We've not agreed on anything. This is all just going to be authentic and spontaneous. The way when I met H, it was authentic and spontaneous. I didn't even know who he was, and I didn't Google him. And the fact that, of course, they're both professionals, and they both know that everything is already agreed and scripted, is so they may be fooling each other, which we know they're not. They may be trying to fool the public, which we know they are, and they're also putting in plausible deniability, so that if the palace complains about the breach of the Sandringham Agreement, they'd say, oh, well, my friend Jamie Kern Lima, she's the one who did it. But the fact of the matter is, Meghan should not have been sending out a compliment slip to a friend with the compliments of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, even if she were entitled to use the title, which she's not. You do not send things like that. And if you do, and you don't, you just don't, the only thing that would approximate to doing it would be if you are inscribing a book that you have written to a friend and you would score out the title. You'd scratch it out. So there's no excuse whatsoever for it. It's a breach of civilized behavior, not that either one of them seems to have known that. No, I wouldn't have thought there was much of a surprise there. And I mean, I'm sure that Jamie Kern Lima has been very creditable in what she has accomplished. But my God, what a voice, and whining and all that faux enthusiasm. Just like very Meghan as well. I'm just so sweet and enthusiastic. And make sure you put your hand in your pocket, because I, Jamie Kern Lima, have all the answers. So if you go on my website and if you buy my this and if you buy my that, I'm going to solve all your problems, because I'm just such a mercher. Just sickening. But then, in the interview, what does Meghan do? She makes out she's so hardworking and that she loves working and that it's all for the greater good. It's not about making money. It's about enriching the world and sort of watering my soul and watering everybody else's soul so that the rest of the world will benefit from my existence and my brilliance. And then, because all Meghan's performances, whether on Instagram or on podcasts or anywhere else, it's always to rebut the truth that has leaked out about her and the reality of what she is and what her life is. And one of the things she had to rebut, because she's now playing the I'm so happy game, and I just love California, and I just love everything about my life. She says about Harry, that man loves me so much. I mean, look what we've built. We've built a beautiful life on the back of everybody else's misery and at the price of tormenting his grandparents and being so abusive of his father and his sister-in-law that they both end up getting cancer. But let's not go there. We've built a beautiful life and we have two beautiful, healthy children. And you know, I always think about it like, most very Kardashian, like the end of the Super Mario Brothers. Talk about tacky. When you get to the final level, and what's the goal of Super Mario? Slay the dragons and save the princess. Like, that's my husband. He's out for just constant. He's going to do whatever he can to make sure that our family is safe and protected and we're uplifted and still make time for date nights. Crikey. Then Jamie Kern-Lima belabors the point by twice making it that neither of them has on any makeup. Well, I'm here to tell you, I was a model, I'm a professional, I know all about makeup. If neither of them had on makeup, I'm a bar of soap, and I don't think I look as if I'm a bar of soap. And certainly you couldn't wash with me. So, Jamie Kern-Lima had on, in my opinion, mascara, or whatever she had on was directed at improving the nature's gift where her eyelashes were concerned. She also had on lipstick, but because she has rosacea and she was going to promote on the back of this her cosmetic and product line, so she didn't have on any foundation. So she was proudly showing her rosacea, and good for her. Meghan, on the other hand, her eyebrows certainly had received a little bit of assistance. Her face was several shades darker than her hands, arms, or neck. So you can bet your bottom dollar she had on facial coloring of some description. She also had on gloss hair, and she had on a blusher there. She looks as if she had on natural lip, not very glossy, but and she looks as if she had done something extremely subtle around the eyes so that it wouldn't look as if it was eyeliner, and it would be waterproof, so that when she cried and rubbed her eyes, it wasn't gonna rub off. But equally, there were no tears. But she cried more than once. I'm so emotional. And we're both so emotional. Two really phonies. I mean, anybody who blubbed like that, I would run a mile from. I mean, all that emoting. We are Shakespearean actors on the stage of life. And, oh, sorry, we've got to do it in a whining Californian voice. Or at least that's the message they're giving us. Well, not the Californians, I know. Then, to show you what a total phony Meghan Markle is, notwithstanding the fact that as a part of the promotion of her product line and that includes everything, People magazine did a feature on Harry, front page feature on Harry, where he mentions Meghan. The whole thing was carefully calibrated, and you can depend on it. Netflix and Ted Sarandos had something to do with that, as did WME. Meghan, who, and my understanding is from People, there is nothing that People prints about Meghan and Harry that is not signed off by Meghan and Harry or their representatives, who have strict instructions that Harry and Meghan have to agree to everything. Well, notwithstanding that fact and the importance of the story to her promotion of her outstandingly successful, I've never been happier. I mean, everything's just going swimmingly, so perfectly, I can't tell you. When she's asked about, and at this point, let me point out, at no point does either of them address any of the claims that Meghan is a bully, or Harry is a bully, or that Meghan has a stinking reputation for being very difficult to work with. Oh, none of that. It's what a wonderful person she is. And, and I'm jumping around. I shouldn't really jump around. So let me finish making this point and go back to the point that I have not concluded yet. Notwithstanding the fact that she clearly had to have known what was in the People article, she completely denies having any knowledge of it. So Jamie, what's her name? Jamie Kern, Lima, says she has to read out to the ignorant Meghan, which of course means that by reading it out, everybody knows how wonderful Meghan is and how much Harry loves her. I'm so happy for my wife and fully support absolutely everything she has done and continues to do. Meghan then denies ever reading or keeping up with anything about herself in the press or in social media, and states that maybe only 1% of what's written or said about me does she keep up with. Well, I mean, it's unbelievable. Then, of course, we have the poor me narrative. They're both working class girls who've had to struggle and fight their way up. Most likely absolutely true where Jamie Kern Lima is concerned, but it's certainly not true where Meghan is concerned. Her father was on over 200,000 per annum when she was born. That's like 2 million nowadays per annum. So, and about eating TV dinners. And also, Meghan is extremely masculine, despite the faux femininity. I mean, she sat down the whole time with her one leg man style crossed on the other leg. I mean, talk about butch. No wonder Harry loves when they roast a chicken. And all those daisy chains that she loves to decorate the place with as she cooks up waffles. A study in denialism. So, will the king do anything about it? Doubtless not. I would be very surprised if he does anything about it. My understanding is that the policy of the family is to give them enough rope in the hope that they will actually do the deed themselves and annihilate themselves reputationally without the need for anything to be done to them. They will do it to themselves. So, but I think the fact that she is so flagrantly not only abusing the Sandringham Agreement, but now exploiting the existence of Harry's children, I think the palace would be well advised to remove them from the royal website altogether, and I suppose maybe they should stop the line of succession at number 5 and don't publish anything more than number 5 in the line of succession, the first 5 people. That's how I would deal with it. But then again, it's not my family, it's the king's. So, Donna Varapodio says, Catherine would have married William if he wasn't a prince, but no way would Meg have married Harry if he wasn't a prince. You can say that again. I mean, Meghan's a girl who loves the package. Yeah, I just love the package. Oh, but you notice when she speaks about it, she doesn't say how much she loves Harry. She said how much Harry loved her. That man just loves me so much. I deserve it. Well, I think you have both couples well sorted. So we have a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to plunge in with Lady C. What do you think about Meghan's latest marching the invisible children? Well, I think it's absolutely disgraceful. No mother who has any regard for the dignity of and the honor of the position and the privilege which those children have been born into would behave the way Meghan is behaving. She dishonors the institution. She dishonors the role of mother. She dishonors the duties of a mother to her children. She is exploiting them in the most obvious and ruthless and relentless manner. I think it is supremely distasteful, and she thinks that she's building interest in the children. She's building disgust at the way she behaves. That's what she's building. Claudia Lynn Hares says, "Dear Lady C, love your show. Thank you. What do you think about Meghan showing voices and the back of children she claims to be Lilibeth and Archie? Love from Brazil." I've read that out to show you how extensive the interest is in the way she is, in my opinion, abusing the legal role of mother which she has managed to acquire for herself. Pamela Varilone says, "Children raised by a narcissistic parent suffer irreparable long-term damage. Well into their adult years, they are left with much residual emotional pain, mimicking symptoms of post-traumatic stress. My heart breaks for Harry's two small children." Well, I have to tell you, you're absolutely right, and I speak from experience, because my mother was a narcissist to such an extent that Dr. Erica Freeman encouraged me to write Daughter of Narcissus. And you don't even, if you're sensible, you don't even try to examine or recognize the damage that has been done, because isolating it is not the solution. The solution is moving on from it and beyond it. But there is long-term damage, and it's like grief, or anything that's really awful. I don't know that you get over it. You go beyond it. And that doesn't mean that you play the role of victim, because if you're focusing on the damage, you're being negative. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be focusing on how to go beyond it. So to acquire other personal skills to deal with it and to go beyond it. And so it doesn't interfere with the positive aspects of your life. But make no mistake about it, it's there. It's like an old wound. It's like somebody you loved dead. For instance, my brother. My brother died when I was 44. It's one of the great sadnesses of my life. Am I ever going to get over it in one way? Yes. Am I ever going to say, well, or my upbringing is another? You go beyond it. You don't focus on it, and you develop new skills. It's like you have a gammy leg and you manage to learn to walk and dance and do all and ski and do everything as if you didn't have a gammy leg. That doesn't mean that the basic wound isn't there. It's just that you have compensated for it and worked around it, and thereby discharging the hold it has over your life. Shelster says, I wish people would take note of that pearl of wisdom you shared at 2742, that not every story needs to be told on the life of others, including on our own lives. There is a huge importance on respecting and giving privacy, most of all on the public stage. I think that Sharon person needs to be called out and should be held accountable. Well, Sharon Churchill is a journalist, and she is a journalist who felt that it was her due, that it was desirable for her to ferret out the story and break it. I would not have done it. I would have taken the view, and I know many journalists who would not have done it either. I'm not a journalist, but I know journalists who absolutely would never have touched that. They just wouldn't have. They'd have thought, this girl, she's living alone with her husband and children. She's fine. Let sleeping dogs lie. She didn't, but she will doubtless feel, as will her employers and many other people, well, she was doing her job. I think there are certain times that you shouldn't do your job quite so effectively. Let me put it that way. But certainly not every story needs to be told, and not every story should be told. I have never got over the ravishment of my privacy. It creates me to this day, and will till the day I die, that my private parts and private life were not only sold to the newspapers by traitors and people who had a duty of loyalty to me and to themselves, to actually be decent and also to speak the truth instead of lying. That's a story that shouldn't have been told either. But it was, and you move on and you learn to cope and live with it. But there are many stories that shouldn't be told, and there are many pains that should not be revisited. And the obsession with nowadays with people spilling their guts in the most destructive way is unseemly, it's undignified, and it's unhealthy. There's a hell of a difference between acknowledging a fact and moving on from it and constantly picking at the wound for your own delectation or the amusement of others. So thanks for that. It's certainly something I believe. And I speak from bitter experience where this is concerned. And that's why I have a degree of sympathy for not only Virginia Giuffre, but her family, in particular her husband and her children. But I also have a degree of sympathy for her parents and siblings, because that also is something they've had to cope with. And really, there's nothing pleasurable about coping with somebody who has the reputation that she had. Sorry, it's not admirable that I know people try to spin it as being admirable, But it really was not an admirable reputation. And that is what has resulted in the breakdown of her life. Castle Rock says, I think, oh, sorry, and to wrap up before, I noticed that Sharon Churches should be called out. Well, she has been called out, at least by me, and she should be held accountable. Believe me, Nadia, she's not going to be held accountable. Absolutely not going to be held accountable, except by very few people. Certainly not by the mainstream media. She's not going to be held accountable. It's a courtesy of one shark for the other. They will be going to great lengths to throw mud in every direction to preserve her from really achieving and enduring the consequences of her actions, because she is partly responsible. Not that she is totally responsible, because Virginia Giuffre was an adult and she had made the right choice once. She could have made it a second time. Which brings me to what Castle Rock says. I think Virginia Roberts made a Faustian pact with the Democratic Party. They provided one of their top lawyers for free as long as she directed the scandal away from leading Democrats towards the royal family. Nobody comments on how odd it is that she had the same lawyer that Al Gore did in the disputed 2000 election. He is one of the most expensive lawyers in the US and connected to the Democrats. He was Bill Clinton's lawyer as well. He still is Bill Clinton's lawyer. Very well spotted, Castle Rock. I covered this, I think 2 years ago. I did a whole program on how David Boies set up the whole thing to deflect attention away, deflect attention away from the Clintons, both of whom were repeatedly in Jeffrey Epstein's presence and close to him, and to not only deflect attention away from the Clintons and to set up Andrew as the ideal victim, but that to effectively promise Virginia Giuffre a big payoff for having done so that would come from the royals. The fact of the matter is that the big payoff never did come. Now, I gather that the boys' side is now trying to say that there was a huge payout. First of all, there was the duty of confidentiality, and that hasn't ended. That's number one. And number two, there's nobody to disprove any of it now. So, but we'll get to that in a little while, because yes, it was my information from one of the world's leading lawyers. He was the head of one of the world's top law firms and was also the head of one of the world's leading legal institutions. And he's the one who explained to me how the whole thing had been set up to neutralize Virginia Giuffre as well, so that she could never repeat the accusations she'd made against Bill Clinton. Anyway, Agnes Vanya says, Oh, Lady Colin, I laughed until I cried listening to your description of the attire of the mourners at the Pope's funeral, especially Madame Macron's head covering. More seriously, I absolutely agree with you about Sharon Churchill's. It's not Churchill. Everybody thinks it's Churchill. It's Churcher. Churchill's disgusting role in Virginia Giuffre's life. If you can bear to stick with this story, I would love to know what you think of Piers Morgan's interview with Virginia's sometime lawyer, Mr. Boyes, David Boyes is his name, who also defended Harvey Weinstein and Elizabeth Holmes, by the way. A lawyer is there to defend people, even if they're guilty. I make that point for what it's worth in favour of him. Who portrayed her as a philanthropist. Why not a virgin and a saint? Fighting bravely against child trafficking, having been one of the chief architects, who could no longer live with the horrors of her past. Needless to say, he dismissed the idea that either Epstein or Virginia were unalived by others, despite Virginia's social media post in 2019 stating that she had informed her lawyer and GP that she definitely wanted to live and any report to the contrary would be a lie. I could find no reference online that Mr. Boyes ever worked for the Clintons. He definitely did, still does. But it's not that hard to scrub information from the internet, especially when you're a former president of the United States and a former Secretary of State and First Lady. You provided a lot of very brave insight in this broadcast. I dare say you know a lot more. Well, actually, very little more than I have already said in my broadcasts going back some years. Nevertheless, no one could blame you for letting it alone now. And I'm basically going to be letting it alone. I don't think I have much more to offer on this subject. I'll cover it now, but I'm not so sure there's much more that I need to add, especially if you go back to my videos at the time of the settlement. Karen Jones says, the press may be somewhat to blame, but surely the bulk of the blame lies with Virginia. She left her sordid past behind, yet she made the decision to revisit it for financial gain. Therefore, a lot of the responsibility lies with her. I know she has young children. Well, they were young when it began, because it began in, if I remember, 2011. That's 14 years ago. So one of the children was a year old. I think all the children are still under 20, but they're teenagers up to late teenagers now. But she opened them up to this by her behavior. So yes, the press is partially to blame, but so is she. Karen Jones, you are one of several people who have made that point, and I agree with it entirely. That doesn't mean that one doesn't have compassion for the choice she made, because she was tempted, and one needs to be compassionate for people who have failed to resist temptation and it has such disastrous effects. And one has sympathy, of course, for her family. But the fact of the matter is, she was an adult. She was clever enough to make the choice, the correct choice, when she was 19 and made off with Robert Giuffre. And therefore, she should have made the same choice again. But she didn't. And then, of course, she got caught up not only with ever more fanciful tales, which would earn her ever larger sums of money, but then she fell into the lure of suing all sorts of well-known people so that she could end up making even more money. So, Susan Scherer says, my grandmother used to say it's called personal life for a reason. And I would say it's also called a private life for a reason. And there are private parts to your private life, and private parts are private. And they should not be made public under any circumstances. But when they are, one has to cope with the consequences. I've certainly had to cope with the consequences, and so has she, and so will her children and her husband, and so will her parents and siblings, and other relations. Angel says, I think you cut Virginia Giuffre way too much slack. She was a grown woman when she made the choice to destroy Prince Andrew's life and profit from telling lies. It was an evil scheming plan, what she did, and greatly harmed a lot of lives. She made choices. She has to take responsibility. Sorry, I have no sympathy for her. She was no victim. She was living the high life, treated well by rich and famous men, flying in private jets, etc., and earning a lot of money. I only feel sorry for her victims. Well, you are one of many people who feels like that, and you are certainly entitled to your opinion. I have a degree of sympathy for her, but that doesn't mean I agreed with what she did or condoned it. And certainly, during the run-up to the Prince Andrew business, I made my position very clearly felt, because I had enough inside information, and I was being fed information by people, including members of the public, who were familiar with Virginia Giuffre's actions over the decades and were feeding me information, some of which, it has to be said, that I fed directly back to Buckingham Palace, if the truth be known. Some of it was truly shocking. I am absolutely stunned that Piers Morgan could give a platform to David Boys and not challenge or present the flip side of the coin. I'm stunned. Surprised? Not so sure about that. Anne Malloy says, tell ADC, I seem to remember some years ago here in Australia, a documentary, possibly 60 minutes, Australia, featuring Virginia Giuffre, where she told all. The ramifications were stunning to the royal family. Although the others she mentioned, like Clinton, were conveniently sidestepped because they had the big fish they wanted in Andrew. By the way, this was before the trial and before the payout. She admitted she had seques for money. She enticed other girls and enjoyed the lifestyle until she met her husband on a trip to Thailand for Epstein to find girls. In other words, she was as bad as Maxwell. Later, I heard, before she met Maxwell, she had lived with another man for whom she did the same thing. She loved the fast life. A few days ago, I heard a report her marriage had broken down because her husband did certain things which I'm not going to mention, which did not ring true because the children lived with him. Absolutely, they don't ring true. Absolutely not. Virginia Giuffre was a professional victim when she was actually, to a lot, for much of her, ever since her majority, very much a perpetrator. I don't know if she was a victim when she was younger, but she certainly was no victim by the time she ended up in the Epstein crowd. Then there was the bizarre story she put out. She had 4 days to live. This is a conundrum we will probably never know the whole truth about. Well, I know enough of it to know exactly what I think, and I've shared it with all of you over the last years. And, you know, Virginia Giuffre had an option. She could have sued me, but she knew if she'd sued me, I would have seen her in court. And you see, unlike Prince Andrew, who they were trying to lure to America to arrest him when he gave a deposition on some trumped up grounds, because Judge Kaplan was a Clinton appointee, and he did every ruling against Andrew that he should not have done. And they skewed the case from the word go. And my information was that I think it was Cyrus Vance Jr. and his cohorts in the Attorney General's office in New York were hoping to get Andrew over for a deposition and arrest him. Can you imagine at the beginning of the Queen's Jubilee year, when all of us knew that the Queen was dying? I'm sorry, I may not particularly like Prince Andrew, but I cannot say I have anything but admiration for the way he behaved in this matter, because I do not for a second believe that he did any of the things with her that she said he did. I don't believe them. Never have, never will. And that photograph was as innocent as anything else. As I have said before, I have on many an occasion, thousands of times actually, been photographed by people I didn't know, with people I didn't know as well. My arm around them, their arm around me, all very chummy. I wouldn't have any idea who they were. I think the whole thing is a tragedy, and I suspect, though, the dust is going to settle sooner rather than later. Of course, there will be an inquest, and then there's going to be another surge of interest. But I think the whole matter will settle down. And Otto Holmes says, "We would love a picture of you meeting the Pope." I will have Sean post it. So we will end on a positive note. And on that basis, I say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.